The human being is first of all born into a certain environment, which may be violent, or it may be relatively peaceful, and the person is born with inner patterns. You inherit certain, even pain body is partly inherited. And so there's a whole set of conditioning that happens. You come into the environment with certain predispositions, then the environment conditions you further, and in all that there's no choice involved. There's just influences. And so you find yourself in this world with certain unconscious patterns that have become the conditioning of who the person is. So karma, as I see it, is the unconscious conditioning that runs your life. And that still applies to many humans. And karma is partly collective, you've been born into it, and partly personal, they come together. So really you can only understand karma not as an abstract subject external to yourself, because then you get into belief systems and philosophy. We're not going that way. You can only understand karma by observing yourself and by observing, and then you'll know many other things. But you need to really, if you want to understand karma, you need to look at yourself. And so I began to understand what karma is when there was something arose that was not part of karma at all. And really here we come to the key. The arising of consciousness or presence or a spiritual awakening is not part of karma. It is another dimension that breaks into the karmic realm. So you do not become awakened by accumulating, as they sometimes say in the East, good karma. That's fine on this level. You can make the walls or the furniture in your prison a little bit more comfortable. But there is something totally from beyond karma that can come into your life at any point within the wheel of karma and rebirth. Rebirth is, of course, part of karma. The deeper meaning of rebirth is identification with form. We don't need to even believe in transmigration or whatever. You can look at rebirth in your own life. Every time you identify with a thought that arises, which is form, you are born into that thought. Because you identify, your sense of self is in it. That's karma. You're reborn. Karma then is unconscious identification with these patterns that you have inherited, the conditioned. Complete identification of consciousness with the conditioned patterns. So consciousness is dreaming, one could say. This is why we use the word awakening in many spiritual traditions. Consciousness is awakening. Consciousness is in a dreamlike state when you identified with the unconscious patterns. And then you are condemned to rebirth. You are reborn into a reaction, an emotional, mental reaction. No presence at all, just rebirth into some form. Or you're reborn into thoughts that arise and you completely believe in every thought. And then you act from those thoughts and emotions. And the action creates further reactions, and the actions confirm to you that you were right. If you have certain mind patterns about, for example, that other people are basically dishonest, just one example of people. People are so dishonest, they're all trying to get something from me. That tends to confirm itself in your life experience. You can try it out, or you may have experienced it before you became more conscious. That's habitual thought patterns that you identified with, and that is karma, creates in the external confirmation that it is correct. So if you think the world is full of evil people, you will meet many evil people. And in other words, unconscious people. And even people who are on the brink or who are halfway between conscious and unconscious, when you come together with them, your belief will pull them into unconsciousness. And that's karma. So karma is the complete absence of conscious presence, and so it's automatic. It plays itself out. And time does not free you of karma. That is a misperception, that if you only have enough time, eventually you can become free of karma. Karma renews itself and repeats itself. It's a wheel. At any point in the wheel of karma, presence can come in. It can happen to this. It can happen to a criminal in prison, condemned to death. It can happen to somebody who has never heard of anything spiritual. It can happen to somebody who has been meditating for 30 years, or not happen to the same person who has been meditating for 30 years. So, in your own life, I can see from what you're saying that presence has already, I can sense that, presence has already come into your life. And presence frees you from karma, not all at once. Karma has an enormous momentum, meaning the patterns in yourself, the thought patterns, the emotional patterns, the reactive patterns. There's enormous momentum behind that. But as presence arises, gradually karma diminishes, the energy behind it diminishes. And gradually you experience a fading out of those patterns. They become weaker. You're no longer completely in the grip of those patterns.